Welcome to this video in which I'm going to be making a ruler like this, laser cut from 2mm thick clear acrylic, and we're going to be using Techsoft Design V3 to create the CAD file on a Windows computer. A few things to notice here. This ruler has 0 to 18 centimeters of measurable units, but the actual ruler itself is 19 centimeters in length because we have a ½ centimeter bumper on the right and a ½ centimeter bumper here on the left hand side. So that adds on 1 centimeter overall. It's going to be 3 centimeters in depth, but we're going to be working in millimeters in Techsoft Design. So I've been using centimeter units there, but from now on I'm going to be using millimeters. So this is going to be 0 to 180 millimeters. And I'm going to have it 190 millimeters in length and 30 millimeters in thickness here, or in depth. Although we're going to keep with the centimeter units on the actual ruler itself. We're also going to look at adding some graphics and also how we can add some text as well, which is going to be a particular process because we're working with a Trotec laser cutter. So the way that we work with graphics may be different to how you're using graphics on another manufacturer's laser cutter. Okay, so let's just minimize this window and let's go ahead and load up Techsoft. So I'm going to press the Windows key and I'm going to type in Tech. And you'll notice that we've also got a Techsoft Visual Toolpath on this machine, which we don't want. We're just going to go with Techsoft Design V3. Okay, so you'll notice that straight away I've got pale blue grid on my page here, which I like a lot. I've got this set up as the default here. You probably have some black dots instead. And the problem with black dots is if you zoom in, the black dots disappear, whereas with the pale blue grid, when you zoom in, everything stays nice and clear. So to create this pale blue grid, what I'm going to do is a right click on grid lock with the right mouse button. I'm going to make sure I've got a 5mm X and Y grid spacing with a 1mm X and Y step spacing. I'm going to make sure that my grid appearance is not dots but lines, and I'm going to make sure here that the color is this pale blue on the top row here. Now you can obviously choose different colors, but I am finding that this pale blue is nice and subtle on the page, without getting in the way of what I'm trying to draw. So I would ask you please to work with that same color. Okay, I'm not going to turn on any of these other features here. I'm just going to make sure I've got grid and grid lock selected, which is what I have here in the top right toolbar. Grid is on and grid lock is enabled. Okay then, now let's just think about getting the basic ruler shape down here. So I'm going to look at my toolbar on the left and I'm going to go to tool A3, which means it's column A, and it's going to be the third tool down. So A3, which is shapes. If I hold my mouse button down, I can see I've got a whole range of shapes here. I'm going to stick with my basic horizontal rectangle, and that now means I can draw this rectangle on my page here. Now I'm going to draw this on the top left. Remember, I've got the grid turned on and I have grid lock turned on. And in that case, I can see as I move my cursor around, it snaps onto the pale blue grid. That is absolutely essential and will become a key feature of all the stuff that you do in Techsoft Design for CAD. So I'm going to move my pointer down a little bit here from the top. I'm going to click once, and now when I move my mouse, I can see I'm starting to draw out a rectangle. Now I want this to be 190 millimeters in length and 30 millimeters in height. And what I'm going to look at is the relative grid reference. Now I'm going to move my mouse to the bottom left hand corner here, and as I do so, my rectangle will disappear and all the text on this bottom bar here will disappear. But if I lift my mouse up and it goes back onto the drawing area, you see those numbers reappear. So what I want you to be aware of here is the fact that as I move my mouse around, there are numbers appearing in the absolute, relative, distance, and angle boxes. And I'm looking for the details here in the relative grid reference box. So that tells me the position of my mouse from the first click. So as I say, at the moment it's blank, but as I move onto the page, numbers appear there. So I want this to be 190 millimeters in the X and then 30 millimeters in the Y. So you'll notice as I move my mouse up and to the right, as I go to the right, the X value is increasing, 65, 70, 75, 80. I'm going to take that all the way to 190. Now you'll see there that if I try to go to the right here, it's not letting me. So I could click and drag the scroll bar here, but I am using a mouse, and I would strongly advise you to use a mouse with this software, because what I can do is a wheel mouse, and that will allow me to zoom out. And then wherever my mouse is, so whether my cursor is on the screen, if I zoom in, it zooms in on that location. So it now means that I can move my mouse further to the right here, and I can extend that all the way to 190 millimeters to the right, and then I'm going to come up to 30 millimeters. So 190 by 30 millimeters, and I'm going to click there. Okay, so that's giving me a rectangle 190 millimeters in length by 30 millimeters in height. Now I'm going to come and check that that is the correct size. Now I know it is because I've been using the relative good reference, but I'm also going to add some dimension lines in here because this will allow me to dimensions and also to confirm with other people that the dimensions are correct. So the dimension line tool is tool B5. So column B of these tools are 1, 2, 3, 4, row 5 dimension lines. I'm just going to click on that tool. You'll notice if I hold down the mouse button, there's a whole range of different dimensioning formats. For the time being, I'm going to go to a parallel dimension line, and I'm going to click on the bottom left once. I've clicked there. I'm going to click again once on the bottom right, and then I'm going to bring my cursor into the middle and pull it down about 3 squares or 15 millimeters and click again. And that's going to identify that I have a length there of 190 millimeters, and the extension lines are indicating where I am measuring up to. Let's now click the top left of the rectangle, the bottom left of the rectangle, pull that away, let's say another 15 millimeters, click again, and that indicates that the height there is going to be 30 millimeters. So notice here that we don't have any units, but the software is set up to working in millimeters by default. Okay, now I'm going to add a few more things here. I want to make sure that the corners of my ruler are nice and rounded. So I'm going to come to the arcs tool here, which is tool B2. I'm going to hold the mouse button down, and I'm going to come all the way to the end tool here, which is draw a filleted arc. So if I release there, and I'm going to put a radius of 2.5 millimeters. Okay. Now it's got a little pointing finger. I need to click with the index finger on the lines where I want to apply the filleted corner. So I'm going to click on the top left here, and then the top edge, and it adds a nice little 2.5 millimeter fillet in there. I can apply that to all the corners. Click, 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 click. OK. And to make sure that this is dimensioned correctly, let's come to my dim line tools. Now I'm going to do a radius dimension. I'm going to click on, for example, this corner here, pull that out, let's say again there, 15 millimeters by 5, and click. So I have a radius there of 2.5 on these filleted corners. Okay, fantastic. Let's now think about putting in some actual units. So to do this, I'm going to get a line tool, and I'm going to perhaps just zoom in here on what we're doing. Okay, so I could start to draw some lines here, but the thing is, I don't know how long I want my line to be. Obviously, I want the lines to be every centimeter, so that's going to be every 2 squares, because remember, my grid lock is every 5 millimeters, and 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters. So I need to go 5, 10, 2 squares on my grid to get 1 centimeter. But I'm finding, notice that I clicked by mistake. If that happens, I'm going to right click straight away, or I could press the escape left of the keyboard. But I'm not happy here with the length of these lines. So I'm actually going to undo those. So I've got an undo on the far right here. Undo, 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 undo. And I'm going to now come to step lock instead. Now with step lock, if I right click, I can see I have a 1 millimeter step spacing. So I can still make sure I'm on that first 0 point, but now I can determine how far I want to come down. So I'm thinking with my markings here, I want to have every centimeter the longest, every half centimeter a little shorter, and then every millimeter shorter again. So I'm thinking of making it 7, and then 5 for the